A lot of people think life begins when you're born or conceived or whatever other answers they're coming up with these days. For some people, though, life actually begins the day a doctor tells them that if they don't make some serious changes in their lives, they're going to die. You see, my life began the morning of my 41st birthday in January of 2019. I stood staring in the mirror, looking back on my life after stepping on the scale and finding out I was over 400 pounds for the second time in my life. You know, my dad died when I was 17. So my choice was plain to see in front of me. Either I take charge of my health, make the necessary changes to live, or do nothing and die knowing that my daughter, being only 6 years old, would spend the majority of her life calling some other man daddy. Can't you see? There's no one coming to save me in this moment. It was me who had to become the hero in my story. You know, we live in a world that has a system in place to remove all accountability from every decision we ever make. Taking accountability and fixing the problem is painful. It's like a journey through the pit of hell while feeling the pain of every lost soul that resides there. But in the end, the journey becomes the foundation of your testimony. My fight has become my calling. So if you're out there struggling and you hear the sound of my voice, I'm telling you that your story is not over. As long as you have breath in your lungs, there is still time. But it's your fight, your story, your moment to stand up and do what heroes do. It's a long road ahead, and it sucks. And maybe you're thinking you can't do it. But I'm here to tell you that you have all the tools you need. You always have, and you always will, because you are enough. And most of all, you are worth it. Nobody is more capable than you. Yeah, Friday! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening. Thanks for making me part of your day. This is episode 245 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. Before I get started here, I just want to talk about my favorite workshop of the week. Look, if you guys are on Weight Watchers and you're looking for a great place to go and hang out, especially if it's Saturday morning, you want to be in Coach Sophie F's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time workshop. Everybody in that room is really working hard at becoming the greatest version of themselves. They work so hard every week. They show up every week. And look, there's a lot of accountability in that room. There's people in there I never knew when I first started this whole thing. And now I can't imagine not seeing them week after week. It's a wonderful feeling to be part of something like that. So if that's something you're looking for, Coach Sophie F, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday morning. She also does Wednesday night, 9 p.m. with the Better Together Community Workshop. That's another great place to hang out. It's a different format, open conversation about whatever the topic matter is of that night. So Wednesday night, 9 p.m., Saturday morning, 8 a.m., both Eastern Standard Time. If you are looking for some place to be, if you're trying to get your mind off of some stress going on in your life and you don't want to turn to old coping mechanisms, look, these are the places you should do. These are the tools you've been given, right? So this is something you could definitely do to start to transform your life. Look, nothing changes unless you change. I don't know if you know that. Nothing changes unless you change. If you try to just because you paid for a membership to a podcast, paid for a membership to a weight loss program, it doesn't really matter if you don't do anything to change anything. You're just wasting money. You might as well go throw it in the toilet. You might as well spend it on something you're actually going to enjoy. Because if you're not changing your life, if you're not actually doing anything different, what's the point? What's the point? Again, if you're looking to get serious and you're looking to be part of a group of serious people, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday morning, and then there's that Better Together workshop. It's a little bit different, 9 p.m. Wednesday nights. You could find me in both of those. If you do come in because you heard about it on this podcast, say hello to me, say hello to Coach Sophie F. Tell her I sent you. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into this.
Journey updates.
Okay, so weigh-in was August 9th, 2025. I had a gain. I weighed in at 213.2 pounds, and that was a 0.4 gain. Total loss since January 2019 is 182.4 pounds. I have a total of 17.6 pounds remaining to get to my goal. I have my work stats going from August 3rd to August 9th. Total steps taken, 74,807 steps. That is an average steps per day of 10,686 steps. I walked a total of 32 and a half miles. That's an average mileage per day of 4.6 miles per day. So numbers were a little down as it is. This was basically the week that I returned from New York. And so weekends are big walk days for me, right? I'll hit walks that are upwards of between 6 and 8 miles, So when I was basically flying on Sunday, you could see there's a discrepancy in the steps this week. But we still got our 5 walks in. It's just less overall because of the circumstance. It's like I tell you guys all the time. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. What is consistent in my life? Walking 5 days a week. That is consistent in my life. It doesn't matter that I missed a Sunday because I still got 5 in. And maybe the steps were lower this week, but that's the anomaly. That's the wonderful thing about what consistency does is because you're down, say, 10,000 steps overall, or even 15,000 steps overall, it becomes the anomaly. It becomes this just happened this 1 week. But consistency shows week after week after week, there is a body of work that supports what he or she says. And when you live up to what you say, the whole world changes for you. Whole world. And that's what I try to do. Week after week, I try to live up to what I say. And I build tools. I build tools for myself to gauge and how to gauge and measure if I'm becoming consistent. And I decided that these tools can be used for many things. And so right now, for instance, I'm using the exact same model that I did to introduce walking into my life, that I did to make tracking consistent in my life, weighing and measure consistent in my life. All of these methods, I'm using it now to make reading the Bible a consistent part of my life. The way I see it is God had to give me this method. I didn't just make it up. It just kind of happened. So if it's by accident, then it's by God. That's the way I see it. I didn't subconsciously say, okay, this is the plan. It just kind of happened that way. The numbers were presented to me. The methods was presented to me. All of these things were just presented. And then the realization that it could be used to make anything consistent in your life was also just something that happened. And that's how you got to know you maybe, yes, the tool came from me, but it didn't come from me. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? It wasn't my idea. It just happened. I can't take credit for it because it just kind of happened that way. I didn't map it out from day one saying this is what's going to happen. It just fell into place this way. I decided, hey, how many days can I walk? I could walk 3 days. How many weeks am I going to do this for? I'll do it for 8 weeks. I mean, it all happened like that. So because I created these methods, I decided they could be used for other things, I decided to use them so that I can try to get closer to God. And making reading the Bible consistent in my life has to be part of that. Mainly because it's literally never been consistent. Never, ever been consistent. Prayer life, not consistent. Reading the Bible, not consistent. And if I desire, and I know I have tools and methods that kind of happened with the weight loss, why can't I apply them here, right? So my first phase of reading the Bible was for 8 weeks. And it basically was 3 days a week, I would read the Bible for 20 minutes. That's the way it all started. And then the second phase, which is now coming to an end at this point, I think I'm 1 or 2 weeks away from the end of it. The second phase went, again, 3 times a week, but I added a prayer time of 5 minutes before and after the reading time. So it's a total of 30 minutes, 10 minutes in prayer, 20 minutes reading the Bible, and 3 days a week for 8 weeks. And I think this is the 7th week, if I'm not mistaken. 7th week in that week's next week, the 8th week, and then I'll change it up. And probably the next thing up is going to be 4 days, the exact same way. 5 minutes of prayer before and after, and 20 minutes of reading. That's going to be 4 days instead of 3 days. That's phase 3. But that was the method that I chose to do this. That was the inspiration I received to make walking consistent in my life, to make weighing and measuring consistent in my life, and to make tracking consistent in my life. So I did all those things, and I shouldn't have any problem making this reading the Bible consistent in my life, right? And this is when, when you try to do things different, that's when your eyes get open to what's actually going on, right? I realize in my attempt to do this, how my life is filled with many distractions. And to the point where I told you guys, it's only 3 days. It's a total of 30 minutes. And look, subconsciously, I don't think I spend 30 seconds thinking about things I have to do, thinking about what needs to be done, like all these menial tasks that fill the day. I don't think I give it a half a moment's thought at any other time of the day. And not a half a moment's thought. But for some reason, the minute I sit down to proactively do what I said I would do, when I tell you guys that doing what you say you're going to do is a powerful thing, I mean that, right? So when I have this intention that I say I'm going to spend 30 minutes, 3 days a week in prayer and reading the Bible, right? If I'm saying that, I have to actually do it in order for the power to work, in order for the for me to be in line with my words. I have to do what I say. I've preached this, I can't even tell you how many times, when it comes to weight loss. there's nothing you can do to take care of your mindset. There are thousands of people, I've heard thousands of times, people saying, I got to work on my mindset. There is no working on your mindset if your words and your actions are not aligned. You could read 100 books a month about self-help, about motivational things, about inspiration, whatever it is. You could read all kinds of books, but all you're going to read is stories about how someone else did it. It doesn't change anything for you. Because in the end, the big thing that exists in your life is the conflict between what you do and what you say. And as long as that conflict exists, there's no books you can read. There's no seminars you can go to. There is no podcasts you can listen to. None of it will work. None of it will help your mindset. Not until you start making your words and your actions line up. When you start doing that, the world is yours. But when I started doing this with the Bible, I can't even tell you the amount of distractions that pop up. And so many of them are because I actively put the phone down. So it's not even the cell phone that's a distraction. I subconsciously put the phone away during this time that I have laid aside to be closer to God. And I'm thinking about stupid things that I don't give a second thought at any other time of the day. Any other time of the day. I don't give a half a moment's thought. But now all of a sudden I'm thinking like, oh, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. I'm sitting here in the middle of reading it, in the middle of reading the Bible, in the middle of praying, and I'm thinking about that stuff. Why? Why? I'm having conversations with people that necessarily don't even exist in the room. Talk about crazy. You ever have talk to ghosts, have conversations with ghosts? That's what I call it. That's not what it actually is, but that's what I call it. Because you'll think of like, say it was a heated conversation you had with somebody, and you start replaying it in your mind, and then you come up with all of these things you should have said in the moment. And you don't even realize it, but all of the energy, all of the anger of that moment or whatever it is comes right back. And it happens during the prayer time. It happens during the reading the Bible time. And I sit there after and I feel like I'm not getting anywhere because of the distractions. And so I made it part of my prayers. Take the distractions away. I don't want them. I just want to focus on what I said I would do. And that is to pray and to read and then pray again. And then I'm finished. 3 days a week. That was what my focus is. I don't want to be distracted. And in this effort, I realized how much distraction there is. Never mind, like, look, you don't live in a world with social media and not realize that there's a distraction there, right? So forget about social media for a second. If you look at the world as a whole, everything is designed to be a distraction. The whole world economic system is designed to be a distraction. They make you believe in a system where the monetary value of whatever the currency is not something you could even see. It's not something you could even see. American dollar is backed by oil. You can't see the oil. This country is backed by gold. This country is backed by whatever it is. But you can't see it. They just make the promise that it's there. That's what they do. And then you find yourself buying into that system, that theology. You buy into a world where you say, okay, well, instead of making your own way in life, you're just going to go in, get your education, and then get a 9-to-5 job in which all of a sudden, because you're a salaried employee, much more is expected than 9 to 5. It's presented as 9 to 5, but really this is the pile of work that we're going to keep adding to, and you just make sure, no matter how long it takes, that you do it. You essentially give your life away for the promise of a monetary compensation. You give your time away for the promise of some monetary compensation. You decided when you accepted the position that your life of supposedly 40 hours a week minimum is worth X amount of dollars per year. You decided that. They didn't say to you, this is how much work you're going to get. They just said, you're going to get work, and this is what we're offering. They don't tell you how much work is coming. They just keep piling it on top. Oh, is this the to-do pile? Okay, here's more. Here's more. Here's more. And suddenly, you're consumed with the amount of work you have. You're stressed out. You're turning to coping mechanisms that essentially don't work. They don't make the stress go away. But you turn to them. They're a distraction. You're so stressed out from work, you turn to ice cream, you turn to sweets, sugar, anything. Salty snacks, whatever it is. Being specific isn't important here. The fact that you turn to something to give you comfort because of the stress that work has given you is yet another distraction added into your life. Entertainment. You're surrounded by entertainment. When I was born, the only source of entertainment was in the living room. Now it's here in my office, right in front of me. A computer is a source of entertainment. There's a TV in every room now. It's a source of entertainment. My cell phone is a source of entertainment. Video games, source of entertainment. Distraction, 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 distraction. And it makes you realize that, I was saying a few weeks ago, why does the devil have to show up if all he has to do is make sure there is a cupcake in your path? Why does he have to show up to fight you if all he has to do is make sure somebody brings bagels to work? Because every time you turn to one of those things, you're slowly but surely detrimentally harming your body. Because you didn't plan to eat those things. And you already eat too much of those kinds of things. But you can't say no. So-and-so brought it to work. You don't want to hurt her feelings. Why does he have to show up if all he needs to do? He could just sit around and do nothing and just inspire someone to bring bagels to work. And I said to you guys, what if every time something like that, every time you went back on what you said, life just became a little bit shorter. People don't like to think about the exact consequences of our actions. They don't like to think about that. They like to believe that there's a world that exists like cupcakes and rainbows and butterflies and unicorns, and everybody goes to heaven, nobody goes to hell, and only murderers and rapists go to hell, but everybody else goes to heaven. It doesn't matter that you didn't do what your plan was for life because you were too busy being distracted by everything. By the endless streaming platforms. Netflix, Hulu, all these things. You got to watch this show. You got to watch that show. The endless consumption of distraction. And at some point in our lives, we all get this. We all get to this point. At some point in our lives, we get to this point where you feel like you're on a treadmill. And you're like, well, what's missing in my life? What's missing in my life? And never once do you think, how's my spiritual life? Never once do you think that. And this all applies to health and weight loss too. Why is the scale not moving? Why am I at a plateau? You never once say, what am I not doing? I tell you guys about the questions you got to ask yourself every day. What do I do well? What don't I do well? What don't I do at all? What needs the most improvement? What could I do today that will make tomorrow better than today? No one ever goes to those questions when they see the scale as stagnant. They have no trouble complaining about it. And to hear the endless, they literally go to a workshop, they raise their hand and say a bunch of stuff, and they don't even stick around long enough to hear the suggestions of what to do. Or if they actually do stick around, it goes through one ear and out the other because they don't actually intend to change anything. These rules are for thee, not for me. I don't change anything. I pay for a membership. That's good enough. And even the systems we buy into, they're designed to distract you. Designed to distract you. When you become frustrated by your lack of progress, they have systems in place to comfort you. Comfort you to make sure you keep paying for no results. Never to point the finger at the source of the lack of results. Because if, God forbid, you find out it's you, you may just quit. And they don't care if you quit. They care that the income is not there. That's revenue stream gone. We become consumed with weekly results. Distracted when we don't like them. Oh, I gained this week. And you spend all week beating up yourself because you gained. Never once do you ask yourself the questions. What do I do well? What don't I do well? What don't I do at all? What will I do today to make tomorrow better? You never ask those questions because that means you would have to look within. And looking within is painful. It's uncomfortable. And the system told me nothing's off the table. The system told me that. I'm only doing what they said. Let's see, you're doing what they said, and you got no results. So maybe that tells you you need to do what they said better, because clearly you're not doing it all, or you need to do what they said and more. And the choice becomes yours in that moment. And you could have one of two attitudes. You can have the winner's mindset, or you can have the mindset of mediocrity. The winner's mindset says, I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what else I need to do. Or it says, I'll do whatever it takes and let me figure out what I need to do. And the mediocrity mindset says, well, I'm doing everything I was told. Hey, look, I'm not perfect. Of course I'm not, hey, they told me that it was okay not to track 0-point foods. They told me that it was okay. I didn't have to weigh and measure them. Oh, yes, I kind of eyeball the stuff that has points. When you start to dig deep, you find all of the stuff. It doesn't take much effort. When you ask questions that force truth, either they're not answered or you're lied to about them. And that's what separates the winners from the pretenders. That, how I'm always saying the 2%? I'm hoping to one day become the 2%. Like the 98% of the people that start this journey will never finish it. 98% of the people that start any journey, never mind just health and fitness, that start anything. They want to start a business. They want to start a health and fitness journey. They want to go back to school. 98% of the people that start things never finish them. 2% of the people finish and go above and beyond. What's the difference? What's the difference between the 98% and the 2%? Distractions. Allowing distractions is the difference between the 98 and the 2%. The 2% don't allow for anything that takes their focus on. They are singularly focused on what they've been trying to do their entire lives. They want to be the Michael Jordan of. Plugging it in there. Imagine if Michael Jordan was distracted. Imagine when he was cut from his high school basketball team. If he was distracted, what would have happened? We would have never seen the phenomenon that was Michael Jordan. And instead, he became singularly focused on not only proving every single person wrong, including that coach that cut him from the team, but to being the best there was ever to play on the court. Singularly focused, acting as if the fundamentals are more important than anything else you could do. Showing up to practice like it's the most important thing that could be week after week after week, day after day after day. The normal practices on a Tuesday. He's showing up like it's the NBA Finals. And we wake up in the morning and we talk about what we are not in the mood to do. And we go and talk to people we know will tell us it's okay that we're not in the mood to do them. You find them. You know those people. You know the people that will be okay with you doing stuff a certain way. So you go to them. Instead of facing what is necessary in the moment. Because the real growth, the real pushing forward on your journey comes in those moments. You don't learn about becoming a better player when you're winning. You learn about becoming a better player when you lose. The same thing goes with everything else. You learn more in the failures you go through on any journey, in anything, than you do from the triumphs. The problem is the choice is yours to make the lesson, to learn the lesson. It's not just going to say, here's your lesson, learn it. You know it's a lesson, and this is where I say, when you're staring at in the mirror, right? The person whose words align with their actions looks in the mirror and does their hair and walks away. They use the mirror for what it is, a mirror. The person whose words and actions don't align stares at the truth of who they are when they are looking in the mirror. The truth of who they are. And oftentimes you'll see somebody not like the mirror for this reason. They'll say, I have a problem with the mirror. Could you not say that you have a problem with the mirror because your words and your actions are not aligned? You know deep down that there's huge improvements to be made where your actions and your words are considered? Are there not 4 or 5 things that you could just say, hey, let me do one of these 4 or 5 things better for the next 8 weeks. And then I'll add the second one of those 4 or 5 things. And the third and the fourth, all 8 weeks at a time. What's to stop you from doing that? There's nothing stopping you. But you know what? You know what numbs the pain? When you sit there and you have a conflict like that. Just like when people turn to ice cream or food, sweets, whatever it is, they turn to that stuff in these moments for comfort. Just like they do that, they look for distractions the same way. When they don't like how things are going in their body, they don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel, and you know what? Their fulfillment could be spiritual, and they go to entertainment to fulfill it. They could be doing a 9-to-5 job when their calling is somewhere else. And it's because we've bought into a system with false hope that we are in the struggle where we'd feel unfulfilled. We feel like we feel depressed, miserable. And you're not even sure what's missing. So many ways you can feel this way. You can feel miserable deep down because you know simply your words and your actions are not aligned. And you've spent so much time allowing distraction, so you never have to face that fact, that simple fact. Even though how to repair it is simple in nature, it's hard to do. And because it's hard to do, you turn to the distraction. You don't consider all of the years of nonsense that was put in place that put you in this position in the first place. That's totally thrown out. All your mind is saying is, I pay for a membership and I want to see results. And I want to see them yesterday. Look, I stepped on a treadmill for 20 minutes. Why hasn't my weight gone down? Well, maybe because you spent the last 20 years doing things a certain way. Maybe that's why. But nobody wants to talk about that. That's the kind of stuff we ignore while we're scrolling on social media, while we're watching Netflix, Hulu, and whatever else. We used to have to wait weeks. A show would be on and you would have to wait to see it once a week. And then there would be like water cooler talk. Oh, did you see the show on Sunday night? And it would be like this conversation. I remember when Game of Thrones was a thing. Did you watch Game of Thrones this weekend? Oh my God. It was the talk for the next week. And then you had those other people. Oh, I DVR'd it. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. You had to wait a week. Now, you get an entire season and you're done with the whole thing. 30 episodes, 20 episodes, whatever it is, and you're done in 48 hours. Where did the weekend go? You gave it to distraction. Meanwhile, what's the one thing we can't make? No man has been able to invent it. No, there's no way to purchase it. We got time. Time can't be purchased. It can't be built or manufactured. And nobody knows how much they have. Nobody. But they're perfectly willing to blow 48 hours watching a TV show on the couch straight. And this is supposed to be okay. Hours going by, and all you're doing is swiping up to the next reel, to the next reel. We don't have more than 90 seconds of attention span anymore. Because we enjoy being distracted. Because everything else in life is too painful to face right now. We don't know how much time we have. We don't know how much we still need to do in this world. What was our purpose here? How much time do we have to do that purpose? And how much time have we wasted being distracted? Being distracted by TV, internet, social media. Being caught up in nonsense. The entire world around you is a manifested lie. That's the truth. Everything presented to you of how the world is a lie. And the people that are telling the story get away with it because they have us all fighting with each other over nonsense while they do it. They manufacture truths because we choose to believe them. They make you believe that things aren't your fault when they are. They tell you, no, this is not your fault. It's genetic. It's genetic. Look, you're just going to have to deal with this the rest of your life. No cure. We have more chronic diseases ever in the history of this country. We have them right now. But there's nothing you can do to control them except pop more pills. And then eventually, those pills don't work anymore because the body was never designed to take pills for long periods of time. They don't work, so they up the dose. They change the medication. You never address the actual issue. It just becomes yet another distraction. Gotta take my pills. Why? Because it's easier to take pills than it is to face the fact that your nutrition is so bad, your body is unable to fight it anymore. That's the truth. That's the truth. How do we change it? Small changes over long periods of time. Facing the truth of what is necessary. Waking up and saying, my actions and my words don't align. How don't they align? What can I do about this? Instead of saying, oh, I can't fix it now, it's too late. Hello, God woke you up this morning. You're still breathing. If you're still breathing and I'm still breathing, there's still time. There's still time to figure it out. The choice to do the hard thing, it doesn't matter how old you are anymore. Because that's the first thing people want to say. Well, I'm 80 years old. There's too late for me. No, that's a lie. You can change right now and make the rest of your life the best of your life. You can live from 80 to 100 and have the best 20 years of your life. And instead, you'd rather die at 86 making no changes. Because, hey, this is the only thing that makes me happy. I just want this. Can I just have this? Why do I have to give this up? You're so focused on what you're giving up, you can't see what is promised. By choice, by choice, by choice. Because you have to have faith in what is promised. You have to do the work first in order to achieve what you want. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.